this time, I want to introduce our speaker. I'm going to have him introduce himself. So come on in, Stacy. This is Stacy Swimp. You're speaking on freedom and progress, right?
That's what we're here to do. That's what you're doing, isn't it? Isn't that what you're fighting for? I don't hear you. Is that what you're fighting for?
Yeah.
All right, freedom and progress. How's everybody doing tonight? Well, I've been here before. Many of you are familiar faces, and as I always say, in the words of Elizabeth Taylor, I promise you, as she told her sixth husband, I won't keep you long. And I usually don't keep that promise, but I'm going to do it tonight. I want to take a moment to just, as you know, we lost a great freedom fighter today, and Andrew Breitbart. And I've had the privilege of meeting Mr. Breitbart and having conversations with him. So I just want to take a moment to ask you to please stand and in memory, please, of Mr. Andrew Breitbart, and to please applaud the effort of this great freedom fighter and everything that he did for America. Please applaud Andrew Breitbart. Thomas Jefferson said something in his book, Notes on Virginia. He said, I tremble, I reflect, and I tremble for my country. For I fear that the sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the sons, and God's justice shall not rest forever. Thomas Jefferson. Like Thomas Jefferson, I reflect and I tremble for my country, and I fear for what's ahead of us. And I fear our sin of complacency, our sin of being docile, our sin of passing the buck in many cases and asking somebody else to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves is going to cost our children's children freedom. Is anybody in here afraid of that today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ronald Reagan said that freedom is only one generation removed from being lost. I have a great sense of urgency today. I came here today to talk about freedom and progress. But where do we go from here? Because we're in a position now to where we're being attacked at all sides, but you know that, don't you? You have that message in your heart already. But my concern is, are we doing enough right where we are in the way that we can, wherever we can, to fight for freedom and progress? I'm going to challenge you and say most of us are not. Most of us are not. Maybe most of you are. But when I say most of us, I'm talking statewide, local, state, national. So we're going to talk about three things. And I said I wasn't going to keep you long, but three things I believe that we've got a message going forward as to how we got here in this mess and what we got to do to get out of this mess. The first thing is moral illiteracy. Moral illiteracy. And the second thing is constitutional illiteracy. Constitutional illiteracy. And the third thing is financial illiteracy. Financial illiteracy. Now, Herman Cain said, stupid people are ruining America. And I'm just going to say, I think illiterate people are ruining America. Okay? Illiterate people. People who have not learned in the things that made America great. People who have not learned in the things that made American families great. People who have not learned in the things that made our economy good when it was good, and we know it's not good now, don't we? How do we get here? Illiteracy. Moral illiteracy is the first thing. When I was a child, before I went crazy thinking I knew everything, and when I was a child, one of the things that my mother, Gwendolyn Swimp, God bless her, one of the things that my mother used to do is she would come every night And she would read the Bible to me as a child. And I don't know about you, but in my house, you were going to respect God. Or you were going to get out. That's just the way it was in my home. And my grandmother, Gertrude Flood, God bless her, same thing. Somewhere along the line, we allow liberals to tell us God doesn't matter anymore. The God that created you and me, the God that this nation, I'm telling you something, America is a moral enterprise. How many of you know that? How many of you know that the founders of this great nation believed that the Bible was the true basis for eternal and moral law? How many of you know that? And how many of you know that today, that when they say freedom of religion, they mean freedom from religion? How many of you know when they say freedom of expression, many times they're saying freedom to express anything but your Christian faith? Lest you be called xenophobic, homophobic, all these other phobics that I don't know what they mean. But today, our faith, our great Christian faith that America was established upon is under assault in ways that you cannot fathom. And many of us are standing on the sidelines and watching this in a docile manner, thinking that it's somebody else's responsibility to do something about it. But I don't know about you, but like the psalmist, as for me and my household, I shall serve the Lord all the days of my life. And that's more important to me than politics. We got to restore our families, our communities back to God. Conservatives, that's what we say. God, country, family. Isn't that what we say? God, country, family. Now somebody, somewhere, I heard, said that the Tea Party's message is not a godly message. And when they said that, I said to myself, and I said to them, you must be crazy. You must be. I've never met a true Tea Party patriot that doesn't believe in God. I've never met a Tea Party patriot that didn't know that this nation is a Christian nation. But the younger generation, many of us who are older, we failed to pass on that message. Let's face it. It's easy to blame Democrats, isn't it? I like doing that sometimes. It's easy to blame liberals. I like doing that sometimes. But at the end of the day, we've got to look in the mirror. You know, the Bible said that Paul, the apostle, said that we would judge ourselves, that we would not be judged. I blame us, those of us that know, for doing nothing. I expect the ones that don't know to do nothing. I expect liberals to do what they do, because they don't know. But many people in my family are liberals. And what kind of family man am I if I just talk about them and I don't give them this message of truth and freedom? What kind of man am I if I do that? The community I come from, if I don't go back to that community and tell them, thus says the Lord, then I'm a hypocrite. I'm telling you that right now. I read something that really caused me to pause and think. As Ezekiel. Now, I'm not going to give you a preachy message now. Some of y'all looking at me like, oh, Lord, you're going to preach tonight.
Go for it. Come on. Come on.
But I'm a Christian first. I'm a Christian first. Then a conservative. And I'm contemplating whether I still want to be a Republican right now.
That's right. That's right.
I'm frustrated with the party. Seems like the elite establishment wants to give our country over. Seems to me that they're trying to do everything they can to lose this election for us and shove down our throats what they think instead of listening to the grassroots, the Tea Party patriots, the ones who are fighting for freedom, rule of law. They're not listening. How many of you think they're listening?
Oh, no.
They're not listening to us. But this message I saw in Ezekiel, when God said, oh, watchmen, have I not made you a watchman over Israel? And if you see your brothers in sin, and you say nothing, I'm paraphrasing. I don't want anybody to say, oh, Lord, he perverted the word of God. He didn't say it word for word. He's evil. So let me just tell you, I'm paraphrasing. He said, if you see your brother in sin, your sisters, and you do nothing, and it's their blood, if they die in their sin and they don't turn away, that they might live, it's their blood I shall hold up to your hand. I shall account their blood to you. And then he said, but if you see your brother in sin, and you say something, and you tell them, and they die in their sin, they do not live in, I will not hold it accountable to you. Do you know that many of us today will stand on the sideline and we won't talk to certain people because they're black, we won't talk to them because they're Hispanic, we won't talk to them because they're a different class than we are, we won't talk to them because they're just different than we are, and we'll make an excuse as to why we can't. I'm tired, I'm telling you something right now. I had a call from somebody that said, Stacy, we need you to come to our town because we need a black guy to go out to the black community and tell the black community the message of freedom and progress. You know what I said? I said, man, the message of freedom and progress is not black. It's American. It's constitutional. And if they're going to hear it, they're going to hear it for all the right reasons, not because I'm black. When Jesus gave the disciples the message of freedom, he didn't say, all right, I want you to make sure you got a black guy when you go to Northern Africa, okay? Now remember, when you go to Italy, I want you to make sure you got an Italian. When you go to France, you better take somebody that's French. He said, go to the four corners of the earth. I read in the Bible where the apostle came across this man named Philip. He said he was a eunuch from Ethiopia. And the apostle said, do you know what you're reading? He didn't say, hey, black guy, let me go get a black guy and come back and ask you if you know what you're reading. He said, do you know what you're reading? The man said, how would I know if you don't tell me? So he got down off his chariot and he witnessed the message of truth to this Ethiopian. And he went back to Ethiopia, this eunuch of Candace. Candace was the title of a queen, not a person. And how many of you know that Ethiopia became the first nation in the world to declare Christianity as its national religion? How many of you know that? This message of freedom and progress, our faith, take it everywhere, to the four corners of the earth. Stop calling me, anybody, based upon the color of our skin, and think black people aren't going to listen to you because you're white. That's not true. When I was 25 years of age, 25, I was functionally illiterate. I was sitting in a jail cell. Many of you know my testimony. It was a white police officer, police chief, that thought enough of me to tell me the truth that he didn't care what color my skin was. I thought I was a tough guy. Had a whole lot of sarcastic things to say to this man. And he let me know how stupid I was. He did. And he was right. I was stupid. He was right. But it was the first time somebody had ever gotten in my face like that with the truth because he loved me. And he didn't care what I looked like. He was inspired by his love for God. That's why we're doing this. We're not doing this because we're conservatives alone. We're doing it because we love God and our country.
That's right.
See, if you're conservative, you're not a conservative because you're Republican. I'm not a conservative because I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative because I love God. It was the Word of God, my relationship with God, that taught me that I'm responsible for me, not the government. I didn't learn that from politics. I read somewhere in the Bible that said that if a man doesn't eat, doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. I didn't have a Republican tell me that, folks, because I know some Republicans that don't work too. Okay? That's a good one. I read somewhere in the Bible that said if a man doesn't take care of his family, he's a heathen. Yet you have some in government today that will try to chase the man away from the family. And say, yo, we'll help you, mama, and the kids, on one condition. Daddy got to go. That is a moral dilemma. It's more than a political issue. It's a moral issue. But moral illiteracy, we don't know any better. Apparently, in some communities, yes, it's worse than others. But no one has a corner on the market on moral illiteracy. That's why I don't like the identity politics thing. Stop talking about black people, Hispanic people, Mexican all the time. At the end of the day, this is a crisis in our country. Because the Great Society tore our families across the nation, I'm going to tell you. Believe that. I don't want to spend my time talking about which demographic, which ethnic group has a greater or smaller part of the pie all the time. That's not the important thing. The important thing is the Great Society vision of Lyndon B. Johnson is destroying America. That's what's happening. So if you're black and you like to be free, get on board with that message. If you're white and you like to be free, get on board with that message. If you're Hispanic and you like to be free and you believe in strong families and you believe it's the responsibility of the man and not the government to take care of the family and provide for himself and his community, then get on board with that message. It's not an identity thing of color. I'm sick of that message. I'm sick of liberals always trying to divide us along the so-called color line, and too many of us are falling for that. Too many of us are standing and reacting to everything they say, reacting to everything they do. That's what I liked about Andrew Breitbart. He didn't do that. He set the tone. That's what men of God do. You set the tone. You don't sit around and you don't wait for the enemies of the kingdom, the enemies of freedom and progress to come and tell you what you ought to be talking about. You go in and tell them what you need to be talking about. This is the agenda, freedom and progress. Now let me tell you something. I said that the other thing was constitutional illiteracy. And we'll get into some very specifics in a little while, I promise you. How is it that we got to a place in America, a country that was established by the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution? How do we get to a point where we have congressional members, statewide, Senate members, statewide, congressional members, U.S., Senate members, U.S., presidents, and I say presidents because make no mistake about it, this mess we're in is not completely Obama's fault. He is the apex of a mess that had been in place a long time, and we were complacent and we let this thing happen. He's not responsible for all things evil. Okay? He's a continuum of something that got out of control a long time ago. How many of you know that?
That's right.
A long time ago. Reagan warned us about this. He wasn't the first one, but he did. The minute that Jimmy Carter made the deal with the teachers' unions and they created the Department of Education, we were in trouble, I'm telling you. And Reagan said it then. We're in trouble. We got to stop this. But there was very little urgency on the behalf of the American people to stop what was taking place with the Department of Education. And here we are now. 31 years later? Somewhere around there. 31, 32, I'm not sure. I think it was 79 or 80 that the thing was created. And education is in a worse condition now than it was then. Our literacy rates are higher now than they were then. Kids are dropping out at a greater rate today per capita than they were then. America is no longer leading the world today in quality education to the degree that we were then. American exceptionalism is still a reality for me. But the basis for American exceptionalism is an educated workforce too, folks. That's one of the things. The other thing is a government that allows the people to be sovereign. So our educated workforce is not what it used to be, is it? I read somewhere that in Detroit, it was a 47% illiteracy rate amongst the workforce. I don't know how they came up with that number. Not sure. But it doesn't make any difference. If it's 20%, it's too much. And it's not just Detroit. It's all over the state. It's all over the country. Constitutional illiteracy has caused us to be docile while people started fundamentally changing the United States of America. Don't you know that's what our current president wants to do? Don't you know that there were people in place before he was elected that wanted to do that all along? Because he couldn't just come and just do that by himself, could he? Nobody can just show up in Congress or show up in the White House and start fundamentally changing the United States unless he had some people who were in partnership with that kind of concept. Oh, yes. Right here in Michigan. Listen, I'm not afraid. I'm going to tell you, right here in Michigan, You have so-called Republican representatives that have been voting against freedom and progress in Washington, D.C. Don't you get fooled today, folks. Make sure you understand that. See, the day that we give people a free pass because they got an R on their chest have got to stop. That's what I love about the Tea Party. I don't care what you got on your chest. I want to know what you're actually doing. I don't care what you're saying. I want to know what are you actually doing. Freedom and progress in the 21st century, to me, it doesn't have a Republican or Democrat label anymore. You either want to be free or you don't. Herman Cain said something I really appreciate. He said his message of freedom and progress is not libertarian, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's we the people. Yeah, that's what it's going to take, folks. It's going to take us, the people, taking America back. Are you with us today?
Yep.
Are you with us today? Yeah. I know you are. So constitutional literacy. Talk about the First Amendment, freedom of speech. How many of you know that one of the things that our president is doing, one of the things the liberals have been doing for a long time is suppressing freedom of speech. But even in the workforce, you've heard from Gary Glenn, you've heard from some of the people here in Michigan, Terry Bowman and others who come to you, I'm sure, and have talked about freedom to work, haven't you? Right. Well, there's another issue that I don't know if you've heard about. Many of you have heard me talk about it. It's called prevailing wages. It's called the Davis-Bacon Act. How many of you know that we still have what can rightly be called a Jim Crow law in America today? How many of you know that? I got some people looking at me like, no, man, stop playing. I know you can't be serious. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. How many of you know what Jim Crow was? Most of you look like you're about under 30, so I'm not sure, you know. You know, if anybody's really heard of that before. So you look a very young crowd here. Jim Crow. Well, Jim Crow was a name given to local ordinances that were illegal. Make sure you understand that the Constitution of the United States of America has always been a pro-freedom document. Always. Unfortunately, for a long time, there were people who didn't understand that, and they thought it was a pro-slavery document. Frederick Douglass came along, and he was one of the people that was the loudest wheel that squeaked, if you will, to say, this is a pro-freedom document. Abraham Lincoln, first president under the umbrella of the Republican Party, agreed with that. Many people don't agree with that today. And so they came up with, in 1931, they came up with something called the Davis-Bacon Act. The Davis-Bacon Act of 1931 was created to keep black non-union construction workers from competing in jobs with white-only unions in construction, and jobs that were partly or wholly funded by the federal government. How many of you knew that? No. Most people don't know that. That is a union subsidy. So while the Democrat Party, as one man said, bamboozles the nation, hoodwinks a community, makes them think that they're fighting for civil rights and equality, all the while they're snatching job opportunities right out from under them. All the while telling them that it's the Republican Party or the conservatives that are discriminating against black people. That's what they say. You're racist. Tea Party people, they said in Congress, Tea Party people want to see black people lynched. I heard a congressman say that on the House floor. Why he's still a congressman, I don't know. That's got to be some kind of violation of ethics. It's ridiculous. Somebody needs to ask them about their vote. While they're accusing everybody else of racism, ask them why do they vote for the Davis-Bacon Act time and time again. Last March, Congressman Steve King proposed an amendment to repeal this thing and get Americans back to work in construction. 185 Democrats voted to kill that bill. But let me tell you something. 48 Republicans voted to kill that bill. How many of you knew that? 3 right here from Michigan. Candace Miller, Thaddeus McCarter, Fred Upton, voted against fair and open competition. Did you know that?
No.
voted against freedom and economic freedom that has a disproportionate effect, not exclusively, but especially on black workers. Constitutional illiteracy. You see what I mean? People don't know this stuff. And so representatives are out there turning the Constitution upside down because we're not educated on the Constitution like we think we are. We don't know how it applies very specifically to education and labor sometimes. How many of you know that it's a violation of the Constitution to even have a Department of Education? How many of you know that? How many of you know that the Constitution does not give Congress the authority to subsidize such things? How many of you know that? How many of you know that the Constitution does not give the government the authority to empower the Department of Labor to control the market through fake wages that escalate prices of labor, that stop jobs from even getting off the ground? Projects can't even get started because these wages, prevailing wages and Davis Bacon, shut them down before they start. And if they get off the ground, you can't hire just so many people because it's too expensive. So people can't work. Constitutional illiteracy would cause somebody to put somebody in office again and again and again who continually votes against the Constitution of the United States of America. Excuse me? And swear on the Bible that they're upholding truth and liberty. Oh yes, it's happening on both sides, my friends. It's happening on both sides. Watch the one that tells you just look over there. Watch that one carefully. Because we got some in our own backyard. I think the Bible calls them wolves in sheep's clothing. We got to start crying out, wolf! We got to start saying it, wolf! If they walk in your room with a Republican pin on and you know they vote against freedom and progress, you got to start saying it, wolf! And primary them out. Don't listen to the excuses. You know, some of them say, well, you know, Stacy, the reason why I did it is because of the unions. That's why I had to do it. Because if I didn't do it, I couldn't win the election the next time around. Oh, so you ran for office to represent the unions and not the American people? Is that what you're telling me? See, we need people in office that stand for freedom and progress, come what may.
That's right.
Come what may. You don't win again? Come what may. You fall out of popularity? Come what may. Your life gets threatened by union members? Come what may. Jesus had thorns crushed down into his skull. Abraham Lincoln assassinated in a movie theater. Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated on a balcony. Freedom workers killed on the road in Mississippi. When has freedom ever really been free?
Never.
But they want it to be free for them. Constitutional illiteracy is killing us. While the people who manipulate and exploit our illiteracy live in fatness and wealth and plenty and give us false promises of hope. Well, we've heard that before, haven't we? Financial illiteracy. You know, it's something because when an elected official would tell you that they want you to do something they wouldn't even advise their own children to do. That's very interesting, isn't it? Think about that. Now think about how many of you have kids? Now how many of you, now if I was your son, if I was your son, how long would you let me live in your house and live off of your income? Till I'm 50? I mean, can I, just do what I want to do, bring my girlfriend up and there, use your house as a hotel? Dad, I'm the man. Come on, Dad. Just do whatever I want to do. I don't have to work. I don't have to, I don't have to save my money. Dad, I'm going to work. I'm going to spend my money on partying and doing whatever I want to do, Dad. And I'm going to ask you to give me an allowance to boost. How many of you going to go for that? Matter of fact, Dad, I need a credit card. I need a credit card. And every time I max that card out, Dad, I need another one. And if you love me, Dad, if you care about me, you're going to keep giving me credit card after credit card until you lose your own house, Dad. Don't you know that's what they're asking us to do? It's ridiculous. I don't know any time that you could spend, and at the same time save. How can you do it? It doesn't make sense. Now, I bounced a couple of checks in my life. Once or twice. Say long time ago, y'all. They're looking at me like, oh my God, this guy is financially irresponsible giving us a speech. No, seriously, some time ago. And I learned that when you bounce that check, the bank is not going to allow you to keep writing checks until you pay them what you owe them. And if you don't pay them what you owe them, guess what they do? They shut that account down. That's why we should have said no to raising the debt ceiling.
Right.
We should have said no to spending. We should have said no to politicians playing Russian roulette with the American economy. We should have said no. And to the ones who said yes, you know what we need to say? We need to say you need to go. Financial illiteracy. And you got some folks out there that think that's sound economics. When the president says, oh, we just need to tax the rich a little bit. That's his favorite term, a little bit. How many of y'all do that? He loves that word, a little bit. We just need to ask a little bit more. Frederick Douglass said that Frederick Douglass said that we may not get all that we deserve, but we must work for all that we get. I don't have a love for the wealthy. I don't care nothing about wealthy folks. I'm trying to get mine. I don't want what they got. I just want to work to get what I want, what God has for me. They don't owe me anything. If you work for yours, God bless you. If God bless you tenfold, 10, 20-fold, 50-fold, because of your equity, well then that's what you deserve. I don't deserve your equity. There was a test, a survey that was done, where they asked some students who received A's as a grade, hey, why don't you let us take a few points off your grade and give to this student over here who didn't work quite as hard as you did. Didn't study as much as you did. Didn't put the preparation in to get that A the way you did. How do you feel about us just giving them 10 points of your grade? You get the B, they get the B, so that we can have equality. 100% of the students said, bleep no. I work for this, man. They didn't want to do that. They didn't feel that this student who didn't put in as much time to earn it had a right to what they earned. I don't feel that any American has a right to what you earn.
That's right. That's right.
No American. But because some people are well-intended. Let me just say this. Some people are well-intended, but because of illiteracy, they don't understand how their good intentions can be harmful. Okay? I'm not going to say that everybody that believes in socialism is evil, because some people don't even know what it is. They don't, believe it or not, there are some people who are supporting socialist concepts that don't know they're doing it. They don't know. They don't make the connection between their concepts of finances, borrowing and lending and robbing Peter to pay Paul through government. You know, they don't understand how welfare, the great society vision, and this notion that it's the government's responsibility to continually subsidize our irresponsibility, they don't understand how that's socialism. They really don't know. So we have to be careful in our messaging systems. Because if I'm talking to somebody that doesn't know, and I say, you socialists, they say, they do. They run from you. And I've done it too. I'm not going to just blame it. I've done it too. When I'm angry, I can get on my rant. Some of you know me. Who said that? I can get on my rants. Sure I do. Socialists, communists. Because I'm passionate, just like you are. But sometimes I got to reel myself in and remind myself, okay, you got to meet people where they are. We have that tendency sometimes to talk to people according to where we are. And we don't see them for who they are and where they are. So I got to remind myself of that too. But they don't know because they're not financially literate how they're supporting concepts that are destroying our country economically. So you get these charlatans that come into our communities, black, white, Hispanic, doesn't make a difference, they come everywhere, and they run a platform based upon socialism. They run a platform based upon what we call stealing. That's theft. When you tell the American people that I want to tax this segment to benefit that segment, that's theft. That's theft. What if one of you one day becomes more financially prosperous? Would you want Stacy Swimp knocking on the door and saying, can I have some of that? Can I get some of that? I see you doing better now. You owe some of that to my kids. And while you're working and earning some of what I want from you, I'm going to the Lions game. And next week, I'm going to see the Lakers. While you work and give me what you earn. And the week after that, I got a hot date. So make sure you earn a little bit more next week. I need a little bit more. Just a little bit. And somebody would vote, I like that idea, because they're financially illiterate. So, we talked about moral illiteracy. We talked about constitutional illiteracy. And I'm really being humorous and simplistic, but I think you get the point. We talked about financial illiteracy. Now, what about practical application? Because I said freedom and progress, where do we go from here? We've heard the rap. We need a map, folks. We need a map. The first thing we got to do is we got to take the message to the people. The people who need it the most, not the people who need the least. We got to stop preaching to the choir all the time. Too many of us are doing that. Let's keep it real. Too many of us are doing that. Too many of us are taking the path of least resistance. It's okay to get on Facebook and talk trash. I do that all the time. I do that. Yes, it's okay to have blog radio shows. I do that too. It's okay to come and do public speeches to wonderful crowds like you. I do that a lot. But I'm not going to tell you people a lot that you don't already know. That's a fact. I might give you a little bit here and there, a perspective that might be new to you, but for the most part, I'm preaching to the choir here. For the most part. So why did I come? Because I'm telling you to get off your rear ends and go into the community and let's save our country, folks. There used to be a time in grassroots organizing that it didn't make any difference where you're from. If there was a need, you went. Go back to some of the videos and watch from the Civil Rights Movement, for example. Used to be a time the National Association of Complaining People, colored people, were a fantastic grassroots organization. I give them credit for that. Make no mistake about it. If it wasn't for the NAACP, there would not be equality in education, a conversation about that, because they were out there doing it, I'm telling you. They were fighting in the courtrooms, Thurgood Marshall, 1954, Brown versus Board of Education Act. They were out there taking care of their business. They were risking their lives going to the rural areas in the South and challenging people to stand up to the Southern Dixiecrats and the voting polls and the tax polls. They were losing their lives left and right. Medgar Evers being killed in his own driveway. They were a fantastic grassroots organization. And somewhere along the line, they sold their souls. But it wasn't just them. It was these grassroots organizations across the nation. They stopped fighting for freedom. And now you don't hardly see grassroots organizations that are conservative leaning that will go out into the community and fight for freedom. We make excuses why we can't do it. Oh, they won't listen to it. How do you know? You don't even go out there. Oh, Stacy, it's not going to change the vote this year. So is that the only reason why we're doing it? Because we want to vote? Or are we doing it because we want to be free? Are we doing it because we're thinking about our children's children? Are we doing it because we want to butter up and suck up to some politician? I believe all of you are doing it because you want to be free. Well, freedom is going to cost us inconvenience. That means you might have to leave Vassar and go walk the streets of Flint. Oh, yes, I said that. In the dark, too, y'all. Jason, you're asking just a little bit too much. I'm sorry. But it's true. But then again, wait a minute, I think you guys would do it because conservatives are gun-toting Americans. Strong Second Amendment Americans. So I think this group will go out at nighttime and, boy, God help anybody that messes with you. But seriously, it used to be a time when that's what it took, and that's what people did. They would go from, when you saw the march in Washington in 1963, they came from all over the country. There was freedom rights, freedom fighters, Jewish Americans, standing side by side with black Americans, all across the nation. Some of them were murdered, unfortunately, serving our nation. But they came from Mississippi, they came from California, they came from New York, they came from Georgia, because Dr. King told America that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. So many of us are provincial. That means we can't see past the roof of our nose. I can't see past my corner in Vassar. I can't see past my little area in Flint. I can't see past my area in Detroit. I can't see past my neighborhood in Grand Rapids. I can't see past my little community center in Saginaw. I think that we are an island unto ourselves wherever I live at. I don't understand the commonality of the struggle to survive of the American people, regardless of what you look like and regardless of where you live. If we are going to take our country back from this socialist agenda, we're going to have to get uncomfortable, people. We're going to have to go into the corners of the earth the way Jesus told us to. Because how many of you know that true conservatism is really a lifestyle? True conservatism is really an evangelical lifestyle, to tell you the truth. And our message is freedom and progress. But you're going to have to start going into every community now. Don't worry about the results anymore. Stop making excuses. All of us, whether or not somebody is going to be responsive to our message, is not our responsibility. It's not our concern. Because when Jesus told the disciples to take the message of the gospel to the four corners of the earth, he didn't say there is one attachment to that, folks. If you think they won't listen to you, you don't have to go. I don't think he said that. But Jonah thought that, didn't he? He sure did. God told Jonah, I want you to go to Nineveh and take this message of liberty to Nineveh. Jonah said, well, I don't think they're worthy of that. They're not going to listen to me. Matter of fact, they don't even deserve your salvation. I'm going this way on the boat. God said, Mr. Whale, Mr. Well, go pick up Jonah for me. So Jonah spent 3 days with Mr. Whale, didn't he? How many of you know we got a country living in darkness in a whale today?
That's right.
Because we decided to go the other ways. But this message of freedom and progress, we got to take it everywhere. Don't worry about the results. Don't worry about if somebody doesn't listen to you because you're white and they're black. Don't worry about it whether they understand what you're saying because you're Hispanic and they're white. That's not the point. The point is freedom. Take it everywhere. And like Jesus said, if they don't listen to you, shake the dust off your feet and keep it moving because somebody else is waiting on that message of freedom. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't believe in an ethnic-based message of freedom. Because freedom is freedom is freedom is freedom. But I do think that you have to be competent to understand the perspectives of the different cultural groups to some extent. That means that you just got to understand how life looks like, what life looks like and feels like to some other folks other than yourself. It doesn't mean that you got to come up with a black agenda or Hispanic agenda. Man, you got 100, I don't know how many groups in America. We don't have time for that. But it does mean, okay, well, if I'm talking to a predominantly black community, I need to help them understand how this message of freedom benefits that community. Maybe in a way that's different to some extent. What do I mean by that? Well, I talked about the Davis-Bacon Act. Right? Most of you didn't know what that was. But now that you know, you're responsible for what you know. It's like, man, why'd you even tell us then? So I expect the Vassar Tea Party to be one of the loudest wheels that are squeaking in the state of Michigan and telling the state of Michigan that the Davis-Bacon Act is hurting America, but especially black people. I want to hear that from Vassar, Michigan going forward.
All right.
And if I don't, I'm coming back.
Okay.
I want to hear it from Vassar. Now, you see what I'm saying? So take that message in a way that you're not coming up with an urban agenda, but you're at least saying, this is how it applies to you. Because folks want to know, why should I care? And if you can't tell them why, you're wasting your time. The Davis-Bacon Act applies to all Americans, no doubt about it. But it's disproportionately affecting some Americans. Minimum wage, same thing. It's affecting all of Americans because it's one of the #1 job killers in America. How many of you know that? That's right. Every time minimum wage hikes go up, job losses also go up. And consumer prices also go up. Anytime government interferes with the market, it kills us. So we got to take this message of freedom everywhere. Don't worry about the color of the skin. Don't worry about it if it's received. Don't worry about how it feels to them, how it sounds to them. Just take it, folks. Take it. Moral literacy. We started with that. Let me rush through this. Moral literacy. Stand for God in everything you do. Okay? If they call you a bigot because you believe in the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman, then a bigot, so be it. As for me and my house. If they say that something is wrong with you because you believe that the Constitution of the United States of America protects unborn life, let them say it. But you stand for God, first and foremost. This great Constitution was built upon a great faith in God. I'm going to tell you that right now. Moral illiteracy. You've got to take this message of faith in God and restore that message back to everywhere you go. God, country, family. That's what it's all about. They wanted us to take prayer out of schools. The ACLU and liberals did that, didn't they? Teach our children to create prayer groups in the schools, prayer groups in the neighborhoods. Do what you can to educate our children about this great God that founded America, founded humanity, led us through and out of some of the toughest times you can imagine. Together. We did it. White and black, everybody. We did it together. But we did it with great faith. And the minute that we stop talking about faith, we've lost our way. Constitutional illiteracy. hold constitutional classes right here in Vassar. Take them to Flint. You're right, you're not far from Flint. Take them to Saginaw. You're in a great position. You're right by Flint, Saginaw, Birch Run. Create some small groups. Reach out to the local community centers, local nonprofits, Boys and Girls Club. They're looking for volunteers. They will receive your ideas. Trust me, they will. Go to your local Boys and Girls Club. Tell them you want to volunteer and teach kids. Now don't go to some 10-year-old talking about, you need to fight for liberty. 10-year-olds don't get that. But you got to talk to them in a way that's age appropriate, and they'll receive that. Practical application. Get out here to the schools, the read programs, to the communities. Reach out to some of the churches. If they slam the door, keep going. But you got to take that message of Constitution, take that constitutional message out to the community. You can't stay here and do it. It's not acceptable anymore. Financial literacy. You got to go out there and teach people about how the Constitution applies to government and spending and so on and so forth. Those little small principles I told you how my mother taught me and how most of you teach your children. A lot of these kids don't hear that. We got to stop talking about people, start talking to people. Anybody can talk about somebody. Anybody can do that. That's easy. But we got to take this message of freedom to the ones who need it the most. And we got to do it not because we're Republican, not because we're white or black, but because we love God and we love America and we love one another. At this time, I'm going to tell you quickly, Lisa's going to come around because we need your help, Frederick Douglass Society. This message of freedom, we want to take it everywhere. And you know me, you know I go anywhere. How many of you saw my crazy self go out there? How many of you knew that when Al Sharpton said he was coming to Michigan and he called for a march against the governor and accused the Republican Party of being racist because of the Public Act 4 and Emergency Financial Manager? On Martin Luther King's birthday, I was sitting at home and I'm thinking to myself, I'm tired of these people. I'm going out there. And so I called one of my friends and said, hey man, you want to go? He said, no. I'm not going out there. Are you crazy? I said, well, I'm going to go. And so I called Lou Tullis Penton Jr. How many of you remember him? He came here with me last time. Yeah. I said, Lou, you want to go? He said, yeah, but I can't let you go out there by yourself. He said, because I know you're crazy enough to do it. So we went out there. 8, 9, 10 busloads of angry folks talking about racism and voting rights being taken from them. And my crazy self, I went out there with a big yellow "Don't Tread on Me" flag and walked right in the middle of them. And I said, I'm here to tell you about freedom and progress, people. And the police, this is a true story, the police, they were concerned about me. They were. So the officers were walking with me as I was approaching the crowd, and he says, hey, Mr. Swimp, you can't go in that crowd, man, because I can't protect you. I said, well, you stay here and be safe. I went to the crowd. Knock on wood, Lisa Valentine came and supported us. We were there in Bay City. Associated Builders and Contractors and Jimmy Green have been fighting a righteous fight here in Michigan to repeal prevailing wages. The Mackinac Center for Public Policy and Paul Kersey, they've been fighting a righteous fight, and I was privileged to be with them. Lisa was there, and we testified in Bay City concerning prevailing wages in Michigan, PA 166, that was created a year after the Civil Rights Act. Very interesting. And knock on wood, for the first time since that act was created, prevailing wages was completely eliminated in Bay City. Use that resource to continue pushing the message of freedom and progress. The Frederick Douglass Society has two things that we're focusing on: labor freedom and educational freedom. That means that we believe in right to work. We believe every American citizen ought to have a right to choose whether he or she joins a union. I'm not anti-union. The unions ought to be able to make their case. No problem. But when an American says, no thank you, I want to opt out, do not discriminate against the American people. Do not harass and intimidate the American people. But I also believe in the full repeal of the Davis-Bacon Act. How many of you also agree with the repeal of the Davis-Bacon Act? I agree that every American family ought to have a right as to where they decide their children are going to go to school. How many of you agree with us with that? How arrogant of anyone to say that their children has a right to private school and no one else's. How arrogant of anyone to say that they want to force you to send your children to a failing school while they send their children to a succeeding school. How arrogant of anyone to say that they want to take your tax dollars and continually reward bad performances and punish good performing schools. How arrogant, my fellow Americans. So we want to take this message of freedom and progress, freedom to work and freedom to learn everywhere that we can. You're going to see coming up soon a new website for the Frederick Douglass Society, formerly known as the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Michigan. Many of you know that I created that organization here, but we are expanding our vision and nationalizing our efforts.
That's good.
And we need your help. So having said that, I want to remind you of something I always say. We cannot change the world, but we can change the world of one person. Take this message of freedom and progress everywhere you can, in the way that you can. And don't worry about the results. One plants, one waters, God gives the increase. You plant and you water and you trust God to be who he says he is and to be able to do what he says he will do. God bless you and God bless America. You got to be a certain ethnicity or a certain, have a certain flavor the way you talk. It's not true. I mean, it helps. You're wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't help.
But I really didn't want to offend them with the questions I asked.
Well, you know what? It was good that he was courageous and did that because, like I said, I paid a lot of attention to what's going on in the country and a lot of attention to how Washington is taking away from our biblical roots.
No, tell me your name.
Randall, Brandell,
Adams. And you live in Saginaw, Michigan.
I live in Bridgeport.
You live in Bridgeport. And you heard about a tea party gathering tonight. And did you know a black dude was going to speak tonight?
I did not expect it.
You didn't expect that?
I didn't expect it.
So when the brother walked up to the podium, were you stunned?
I wasn't 100% shocked because, like I said, like you were saying, it doesn't matter what color we all, you believe in freedom,
Yeah.
get on up there and speak. So
is this the first tea party gathering that you've ever been to?
yes.
And I know you've heard a lot of stereotypes of the tea party.
Yes.
Give me one or two of those stereotypes.
Back in the 2010 elections, there were a bunch of racists and gun crazy lunatics and all this. And of course, I was very proud that there was a separate movement besides, the Tea Party and the Republican hand-in-hand sort of, but there was something separate besides the same two parties. It was something different and something new, and how wave shocked the country. That new idea, or that old idea revived. I love it.
So what inspired you to come to this tea? This is your first time. What inspired you to say, you know what, 2 years later, I'm finally going to go to my first tea party meeting? What made you come?
Well, Don approached me, and we talked a little bit about our ideas, and they matched, they aligned, so I said, hey, why not? I can't keep talking about this and talking about it, but not doing any action. If I'm not acting on things I'm talking about, then I'm a hypocrite. So.
Yeah, get off the couch. Wake up and get off the couch.
What are, if any, what are one or two of the themes of my speech tonight that really stuck out, that you really stayed with you, that really resonated with you?
Get out of your comfort zone and do something. Definitely, that's a challenge for me. Sometimes to get out of my comfort zone and say something to some new people that I've never met before. Sometimes I get discouraged. Like I said, people in my age group not really paying attention to or caring about the things that are going on. I should just move to the next person and not get discouraged about that particular person not agreeing with me or caring about me.
Now you heard me talk about the Davis-Bacon Act of 1931. Excuse me. Racism and slavery. Did you know about that before I talked about that?
Did not know.
And when you heard about that, and me talking about how the Democrat Party has been pushing policies and discriminating against black people, even though they're telling us that they're fighting for civil rights. What were you thinking to yourself when you heard that?
I did not know that something like that was still around, and I didn't know that they were still voting on it. And I hear a lot of Democrats talk about the demographics of each election and how they need to bring in more black people, more urban people, but yet they're voting on this stuff that's against it. That's garbage.
So would you come to another Tea Party gathering?
I sure will.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you too. Thank you.